Hello friends, I'm FIDE instructor Atul Dahale and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to see a very fascinating game played by a super genius chess player. Yes, it is said that he is not from planet Earth. He has his own planet called as planet Ivanchuk. He is none other than Vassily Ivanchuk, because it is also said in his prime era that he used to remember all the openings from A to E, means there was opening encyclopedia, and he used to remember each and every opening, and he has played all the openings which are available in opening encyclopedia. So you can say that he is a super genius. And even when Kasparov was playing at that time, he considered that there are only 3 to 4 players who are a real chess player, you can say, and among them Vassily Ivanchuk was one of them. So without further delay, let's understand what happened in this game. Well, the match situation was like Vassily Ivanchuk was trailing by 1 point, and this was the 4th game in their match against Peter Leko, and he must win this game. And to win this game, he decided to play King's Gambit, and he played this game in the style of romantic era. Yes, he started with e4. But before we go further, I would just like to say that if you like this video, do like, share and subscribe to my channel. That will be a great help for me. So here Ivanchuk was white, Peter Leko was black. They started with e5 and surprise, here he plays f4. Well, you can expect this kind of moves from Vassily Ivanchuk. It is not really a great surprise. Here ef4 was played, the knight f3, and here if you want to go in the previous era, the romantic era which I was talking about, Morphy, Anderson and the great players of that time, you can say 19th century, they used to play g5, then h4, g4, knight g5 or knight e5. This kind of moves were played at that time and the games were super exciting. But here Peter Leko played h6. Well, for Peter Leko, this is not something new. He has played against Morozevich, who was also a very creative player. He played h6, this move h6 in 2000, and the game went on to play in the similar fashion. We'll just go through the moves. Here Ivanchuk played d4, controlling the center of the board. Now g5, and now a very important move, g3. Well, g3 is an important move because you need to undermine the pawn structure which is there on the king side. Well, from black side, if you try to play g4 followed by f3, this is not going to work because white has a nice move, that is knight e5. Now the pawn on g4 is a weak. Also the pawn on f7 is a weakness. And here if you play f3, obviously we can just capture the pawn on g4. And if you play fg3, then hg3. And if you want to protect this pawn on g4 and place h5, then you can see that there is a great pin on this h file. But okay, we can capture on g4, no doubt about it. But there is one more weakness, that is the f7 weakness, and we can play bishop c4 in this position. And now the pawn on f7 is not going to be protected so easily, because if you try to protect it like d5 move, then we have bishop takes d5, or if you play knight h6, then obviously we can just capture on h6 and followed by f7 pawn is going to fall. So this thing is not going to work. So after g3, Peter Leko decided to play fg3, then hg3, then bishop g7. Now Ivanchuk develops the knight to c3 square, d6 was played, and now here previously the game which I was talking about, Morozevich versus Peter Leko, went on to play bishop c4, and the game continued with knight f6, queen d3, knight c6, bishop b3, bishop g4 and rook f1, and the game was very complicated. Eventually it was ended in draw. But here obviously Ivanchuk is a very well prepared player, and he plays bishop e3 in this position. He deviates, he changes the position, changes the moves. He plays knight f6. Obviously the idea of knight f6 is to play at some point knight g4 and attack this bishop on e3. But Ivanchuk is a very calm player. He plays queen d2. He asks his opponent, what are you going to do even if you play knight g4? He plays knight g4 and he calmly plays bishop g1. The bishop is very important. You need to keep that bishop on the board. Okay. So knight c6 is played and he plays long castle. Now by doing that thing, the rook which was sitting on the a1 square now is in the game. But if you see, black's king is still in the center of the board and he can only castle in this position. Okay, but if you take the stock of the position, black has castled, white has also castled. But there is one thing which you can see, the pawn structure in front of the black's king is little bit shaky. Although he has this bishop and knight to protect on that side of the board, but still you will say that black is little bit unsafe in this position. And Ivanchuk understands this position very well, and he sees that his opponent is having this knight on g4, which is the main defender. And as the theory goes, whenever you can, you should try to exchange your opponent's good piece. And here the knight on g4 is a good piece, and Ivanchuk plays knight d2. He is going for the knight on g4. So here black plays knight h2, rook h2, then bishop g4, the rook is being attacked, rook e1, very simple move, knight e7. In this position, black is trying to play d5, maybe in future. Okay, so if you try to stop this d5 move, you can play bishop c4, but still if black wants to play d5, then he can play c6 followed by d5, and it will be something interesting position for him. But here Ivanchuk decides to put the bishop on g2 square, and okay, you can play d5, but the pawn will be lost in that case. And one more thing is that the bishop is well placed on this diagonal. Okay, so here black plays queen d7, bishop e3. Obviously we need to get the bishop in the game. And okay, I'll just tell you, Ivanchuk is planning something very interesting in this position. His opponent Peter Leko plays knight g6 and Ivanchuk plays rook e h1. Now you'll say, okay, he has the rook on, two rooks on the h file, then he might be thinking that okay, something will happen, he needs to maneuver and all. But Ivanchuk is a great genius. He decides to play this position in a very creative way. Peter Leko, completely unaware of his opponent's idea, maybe I'm just assuming, he plays c6 in this position. And here Ivanchuk gives up the rook exchange sacrifice, and he plays rook h6. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the knight on g4 and the bishop on g7 are the main defenders in this position. And if you remove your opponent's main defenders, then he will be left with very less active pieces, or you can say the defenders will not be there, and it will be much more easier to play from your side, and you can attack your opponent in a better way. And Ivanchuk obviously understands this thing. Here bishop takes h6, rook takes h6, king g7, and bishop takes g5. By giving the exchange sacrifice, he has got 2 pawns. But okay, black is not completely lost. He has everything under control, because the rook on f8 can always come to h8 square and the rooks will be exchanged. But you will say that okay, rooks are going to be exchanged. Why did he give up the exchange sacrifice in this position? But there is a very deep idea in this position that okay, even if you have given the exchange, you have got lot of activity, and black's king is unsafe in this position. Black plays f6, obviously to protect everything. The bishop comes back to e3 square, and now rook h8 was played. Now any normal human being, or you can say any normal human player, will think that okay, I need to get this bishop in the game, and he will play bishop f1, something like this, to play bishop c4 or bishop d3 or something like that. But as I said, Ivanchuk thinks in a very different way. We cannot really match him. He plays b3 move. He is not even protecting anything on h6. Okay, the rook is already protected, we don't need to worry about it. But who plays b3 kind of a move? He sees that in future his opponent's pieces are going to come on the king side, and the king will be checked at that time. So he creates a safe square for his king. Very long term thinking. And here his opponent captured on h6, bishop takes h6, king h7, and now he plays bishop f3, bishop f1. Obviously he wants to go to d3 square or c4 square wherever it is possible, so he plays this move. And also there is a threat of queen h2, followed by there might be discovered checks in this position. Black plays bishop h3, bishop e2, black plays rook e8 in this position, and now king b2. Another very silent move. He is not in any kind of hurry. He has given the exchange, but he is not any kind of hurry. He plays the chess with a cool head. Okay, king b2. Now black plays b5. His idea is to play b4, and he wants to attack on the e4 square. So he protects the pawn with bishop d3. He plays queen g4. Again the e4 square is being attacked, and also the pawn on g3. Now in this position, what to do? Should you protect the pawn on g3, or should you play something else? And Ivanchuk understands that okay, I don't really need the pawn on g3. I should get back my bishop to e3 square, and he plays this move. And here, okay, from black side you can capture the pawn on g3, but that will be a little bit difficult position to play, because there is a very great tactical idea which was there in the position. The idea is to play e5. Obviously here the best move from black side can be f5, trying to block this diagonal, because if you open up this diagonal and play something like f takes e5, then knight e4 is a great move, because you are threatening knight f6 check followed by knight takes e8, and also the queen on g3 is being attacked, and you can see the queen is not having any good squares. If he plays f3, then knight g5 and the queen will be lost. If he plays queen to g4, then knight f6 and queen will be lost. He cannot really play queen h4 here in this position, because we can play bishop g5, again the queen will be attacked, knight f6 check, and then rook will be lost in that case. And if you play queen g2, then we can calmly play queen takes g2, bishop takes g2, knight f6, and we'll capture the rook on e8 on the next move. Brilliant calculation, isn't it? But okay, f5 was the best move from black side in this position, and after f5 I will just say that knight e2 attacking the queen followed by e takes d6 is something which white can play, and the position is still double-edged in this case. But Peter Leko did not capture on g3, he plays b4, attacking the piece on c3, and now he plays knight d1, obviously knight should be protected, and now he captures on g4. Now here in this position, Ivanchuk plays a move which is really complicated to understand, because he plays queen takes b4, and here if you can see, black can simply play bishop g4, he is attacking on d1 square, that is the knight. The knight is protecting the bishop on e3. If the knight moves, the bishop on e3 will be lost. If you play queen d2, trying to protect both the pieces, then also bishop takes d1, queen takes d1, and queen takes e3, black will be complete rook up in this position. So why did he play this move? Well, he had a very great idea in his mind. What is happening is like he will play e5. That's what he played. His idea is very deep. Here, if you capture on d1, then the bishop on d1 will be lost in a very dramatic way. Okay. Here, white will play queen b7 check. He doesn't have h6 square. If in this position rook e7 is also not possible, because this bishop is pinning on this diagonal and g6 is a pin, he'll play queen e7, just getting the rook for free. And if you play king h8, this kind of a move, then you can play queen c6, another good move, attacking the rook on e8. If rook goes to the g8 square, then finally the queen on c6 will give a check on h1, attacking on d1 as well as giving the check, and he will recover the piece. Here queen h4 and queen takes d1. You can see, although this position white is extended down, but he has phenomenally awesome bishops in this position. Okay, f takes e5, d takes e5, knight takes e5, and we can just capture on a7, and these three pawns are going to decide the game in white's favor. Okay, and the king on h8 is poorly placed, obviously it is that case. So after e5, Peter Leko understands the position that the d1 knight is not really free. Okay, and he plays f5, getting rid of all the threats, and here Ivanchuk plays queen d6, another good move. He is not worried about his d1 knight. Obviously, if he capture on d1 in this position, he had planned bishop takes f5. Again, he is not worried about the bishop on e3, because it will lead to a checkmate after queen g6 check, king h8 and queen h7 mate. I'll just show you the variation. This will be a checkmate, so he cannot really capture the bishop on e3. So he protects the bishop knight on g6 with rook g8 move, but now he plays a very calm move, bishop d2. And here in all these complications, although black is rook up in this position, the king is very badly placed. It is not having any shelter, and look at these two bishops and a queen. Okay, they are attacking the black's king in a great style, and Peter Leko wanted to exchange his opponent's best piece. The piece is obviously on f5, and he plays bishop g4. Obviously the game was played in rapid format and they were already short of time, and here bishop g4 is the final mistake which Peter Leko made. And here queen e7, a good move check, rook g7 and queen g5, a very silent move. Here the bishop cannot move because the queen on g3 is hanging, and bishop is lost. With that bishop lost, queen h2, bishop takes g4. White has 3 pawns, extra pawns you can say in this position. The king is still weak, the knight cannot really move anywhere, and this is completely winning position for white. I'll just go through the moves what happened in the game. This is already completely over for black. So here bishop queen h5, he exchanged the queen, rook g2, bishop b4, he's attacking there. Plays bishop f3, a nice move. He's going to exchange the knight also. Bishop takes d5, cd5, bishop c5, the a7 pawn is being attacked. a6, and now it's time to roll our pawns on the queen side. A very easy win. b4, the idea is obviously to play a4 and b5 and the pawn will just be pushed. King g6, a4, king f5, b5, ab5, ab5, king e6, b6, king d7, king b3. Obviously we want to play c4 and create yet another passed pawn. King c6, I know that Ivanchuk must be enjoying this position. c4, d takes c4, king c4, rook f4. The rook is completely helpless in this position against a bishop and 3 pawns. Okay, e6, rook e4, e7, king d7, and now it's time to play the other pawn. b7, king c7, and now bishop d6 check. A final, a very nice, interesting, or you can say the simplest way to win the game. King takes b7 and now bishop e5. The e pawn is not going to be stopped anyhow, and here finally Peter Leko shakes the hand of Ivanchuk and says okay, online only. He said like okay, I resign. So this is a beautiful game played by Vassily Ivanchuk. The complications were there, and the way he sacrificed his pieces, it reminds us that he was playing in the style of Morphy with the great opening. Obviously the opening King's Gambit is not something new. It is played since long time by the great players like Morphy, Anderson, even Stennis and all. So it reminds us of the romantic era, I will say. If you like this video, do subscribe to my channel and share it with all your friends. And if you want to support my channel, then definitely you can donate. The links are given in the description. Till then, goodbye and thank you very much.